Do you remember when everyone thought Tupac's story ended that night in Las Vegas? Well, new footage of his body at a supposed funeral just flipped that entire story upside down. What those cameras caught wasn't peace. It was mystery caught in plain sight, a secret that might finally reveal what really went down that night. The same 14 seconds that shook hip-hop to its core in 2025. Almost 30 years after Tupac Shakur's passing, the internet got rocked again. A short, grainy, dimly lit clip appeared online.
So we jumped in a cab. She called Yasmin and the assistant Molly, and Yasmin didn't know what was going on because it went to voicemail on Pac's phone.
And it looked like Tupac's body lying in what appeared to be a private funeral viewing. The lighting, the camera angle, even the people standing around, everything pointed towards something unbelievable. It hinted at a hidden ceremony, one that was never talked about publicly, one that didn't match any official record. For decades, the world believed Tupac was cremated shortly after, but this clip suggested otherwise, and fans went wild. Some called it the most haunting 14 seconds in hip-hop history. Others said it was the final proof they had been waiting for. Now, to truly understand why this footage is shaking up the culture, you've got to rewind the story. Back to the night the legend was silenced, and to the few people who actually witnessed what went down behind those hospital doors, before the ashes, before the myths. Back when Tupac Amaru Shakur, the poet, the revolutionary, the movie star, took that fateful ride through Las Vegas on September 7th.
His right lung was shot out, so we had to remove his right lung. And for the next 12 hours, he's gonna go through a series of reparative operations.
1996, just hours after a heated confrontation inside the MGM Grand. Suge Knight and Tupac had pulled up to Vegas for the Mike Tyson fight. It was supposed to be all celebration, show some face, then fly right back to LA. But what was meant to be a smooth night turned into pure chaos within minutes. According to witness statements and official reports, Tupac and Suge were stopped at a red light on Flamingo and Koval when a white Cadillac slid up next to their black BMW. Then everything exploded into panic. 13 rounds tearing through the quiet Vegas night. Tupac was struck 4 times. 2 in the chest, 1 in the thigh, and another in the arm. Suge caught a graze but managed to keep the car rolling long enough for help to arrive.
We did 6 nights, and those 6 nights I was there were death threats, undercover FBI agents, a police force that did not want to cooperate.
By 11:20 p.m., Tupac was rushed to University Medical Center, clinging to life. He never walked out of that hospital again. Or so the story goes. But that's not how everyone remembers it, especially not Gobi Rahimi, Tupac's filmmaker, creative partner, and one of the few who actually lived through those chaotic days. Gobi wasn't just behind the camera. He helped shape Tupac's image through videos like California Love, Hit 'Em Up, and 2 of America's Most Wanted. He was there through every storm, and most importantly, he was there that night when everything fell apart. Gobi later recalled, Yasmin made a couple of calls, then called us back and said, go to University Hospital and wait there until we get there. So he and Tracy rushed over immediately.
It was that day, a couple of weeks before Vegas, that he fired David Kenner and his legal team. And I believe he fired Reggie Wright and Right Way either the same day or the day after. And it was obvious. He was ready. Pac was ready to fly the...
We walked into the ER waiting room, he said, and it was David Kenner, Suge's mom and dad, Reggie Wright, and a few others from Death Row. Ada Jones and Jamala were on the payphones crying. The scene was pure heartbreak, tension, and confusion, and nobody knew what was really going on. When Gobi walked through those hospital doors, it was nothing like what the world imagines today. No flashing press cameras, no cops filling the halls, just heavy silence and pure fear hanging in the air. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Suge Knight's parents, Afeni Shakur's assistants, and Tupac's fiancée, Kada Jones, who was sobbing by the payphone, begging for any kind of update. Everyone there was waiting, praying, holding on to hope that something would change. Then, a nurse appeared. Her voice was calm, but the message behind it cut through the room like ice. Tupac's body was in critical shape, shattered from the inside. The surgery that followed was beyond intense. Doctors had to remove his right lung and repair massive internal damage while machines struggled to keep his body stable. Every hour, his breathing tube was adjusted as his vitals dropped lower and lower. Still, in those early nights, hope refused to die. Gobi and the Outlaws, Tupac's closest circle, stayed on rotation, sleeping in waiting rooms and guarding the entrances themselves. They weren't taking any chances. Rumors were already spreading that someone might try to come back and finish the job. The tension was unreal, and every shadow in that hospital felt like a threat. What Gobi described after those long nights was straight chaos. Unmarked cars parked outside the hospital, security stretched thin, strangers showing up in the hallways asking questions nobody dared to answer. The tension was so thick you could feel it in your chest. By the fifth night, it got so real that the Fruit of Islam, the security arm of the Nation of Islam, stepped in to take full control of the hospital. That's how dangerous and unpredictable things had become. Then came September 13th, 1996. 4:03 p.m., the moment that changed music forever. Tupac was pronounced gone. The very next day, September 14th, Afeni Shakur, his mother, his protector, made the decision to have him cremated immediately. There was no public viewing, no coffin, no grave, just a small private gathering on a Malibu beach. The people closest to him lit bonfires, played drums, and scattered the ashes into the Pacific as the sun went down. Afeni refused to let her son's body become a spectacle. She wanted peace, not a circus. Official reports from the Shakur family and death row insiders claimed everything was handled quietly, privately, and respectfully. The cremation was said to be supervised and immediate, but here's where the story starts to twist. To this day, no mortuary has ever officially confirmed handling Tupac's body before that supposed cremation. Even stranger, the crematory worker reportedly in charge of the process suddenly quit and vanished soon after. And now, decades later, the internet explodes with this leaked clip, appearing to show an open casket viewing of a man whose face, tattoos, and structure look exactly like Tupac. Surrounded by candles, dim lighting, and a small group of mourners, the scene feels way too real to ignore. If what we're seeing is authentic, it means the world was never told the full story, only the version someone wanted us to believe. To understand why this leaked footage has everyone losing their minds, you've got to know how locked down Tupac's final moments were. The Shakur family ran everything with precision. Every move, every name, every report was tightly guarded. According to the official record, the sequence was clear. September 13th, Tupac declared gone at University Medical Center. September 14th, a private cremation in Los Angeles. September 15th and 16th, a small memorial on a hidden Malibu beach. Then, on September 22nd, a public ceremony in Harlem, organized by the Nation of Islam. And that was supposed to be it. No funeral home listed, no public viewing, no cameras, just silence and secrecy. But now, this new footage, allegedly filmed in a dim mortuary room somewhere in Los Angeles, completely flips that narrative. Viewers noticed the candle setup and decor in the background looked identical to the arrangement style of Angela's funeral home, the same place Tupac's body was reportedly transported before the cremation. The problem? Angela's funeral home has always denied that any recording was ever taken inside, yet the rumors never stopped. Back in the late 90s, whispers started spreading through the industry. Claims that a few death row insiders had privately seen Tupac's body before the cremation. Some said they wanted closure, others said they were checking out of suspicion, and a few even swore the man in that casket didn't look like Tupac at all. Now those old whispers collide with this new visual proof, and the timing couldn't be crazier. For years, fans believed Tupac's story ended peacefully on that Malibu beach, surrounded by music, cigars, and the ocean breeze. But if this video is real, that entire ending might have been a staged illusion. People who attended that private beach memorial described it as intimate. No more than 30 to 50 people gathered under the Malibu sky. Afeni Shakur, the Outlaws, Jada Pinkett Smith, and even Snoop Dogg were there. Some said there were drums and sage smoke filling the air, while others remembered moments of laughter breaking through the tears. That night wasn't just emotional. It gave birth to one of the wildest legends in hip-hop history, the Ashes story. Members of the Outlaws, including Young Noble and Idi Amin, later claimed they mixed Tupac's ashes with marijuana and smoked them as a final tribute, a personal ritual inspired by his lyric, "Mix my ashes with the weed and smoke me when I die." They've repeated this story for years, most recently again in interviews from 2024, calling it a way to keep him close forever. But Afeni Shakur's family has strongly denied that ever happening, labeling it unauthorized and deeply disrespectful. And here's where it gets chilling. If the leaked video is real, then that famous ashes story doesn't add up. How could anyone have smoked Tupac's ashes if his body hadn't even been cremated yet? The leaked footage is time-stamped September 14th, 1996, the exact same day the cremation supposedly happened. Experts who've analyzed the video point out that the lighting, camera tone, and decor match early 90s Los Angeles mortuary aesthetics perfectly. You can see a silk cloth covering the lower body with visible tattoos, especially the MOB and Outlaws markings that appear consistent with the autopsy photos released years later. But here's the twist. The body in the clip doesn't show the 3-inch surgical incision that was documented in the official autopsy on Tupac's chest. Instead, the skin looks smooth, untouched, and covered with light makeup. So what does that mean? Either this footage was carefully staged, or someone had Tupac's body cosmetically reconstructed for a viewing, which would confirm that a mortuary was involved after all, and that completely rewrites everything we thought we knew about his final days. So maybe a viewing did happen after all, and that changes everything. Let's rewind to the last 24 hours of Tupac's life. September 7th, 1996. Las Vegas was electric that night. The city shimmered under the desert heat, packed with fans and flashing lights. Mike Tyson was making his return to the ring. Death Row Records was in the building. And Tupac Shakur, he was alive, loud, confident, laughing like he owned the night. But by midnight, he'd be gasping for air in the passenger seat of a BMW as chaos tore through the Vegas Strip. Every second of that night has been studied, replayed, and argued about. And still, the puzzle never fits perfectly. The day started like a victory lap. Tupac woke up late in his suite at the Luxor Hotel, where he was staying with his fiancée, Kidada Jones, the daughter of Quincy Jones and half-sister to Rashida Jones. The room, according to later interviews, smelled of cigarette smoke and sandalwood, his signature pre-show ritual. Around 2 p.m., he called Suge Knight to lock in plans. They agreed to meet at the MGM Grand by 7 p.m. Pac was hyped to watch Tyson knock out Bruce Seldon, especially since Tyson had promised to walk into the ring to Tupac's own track, Can't See Me, from All Eyes on Me. But beneath the excitement, tension was brewing. Things between Tupac and Death Row were getting messy. Gobi Rahimi, the filmmaker and one of the few people who saw it up close, later revealed that Tupac had fired his Death Row legal team just 2 weeks earlier, including attorney David Kenner and security chief Reggie Wright Jr. That move alone sent shockwaves through the label, because nobody cut ties with Death Row like that and walked away easy. The energy around Pac in those last hours was wild. Half celebration, half danger. Like he knew something big was coming but couldn't stop it. By the time Tupac touched down in Vegas that weekend, he was practically moving solo. No real security, no loyal protection, and no one he could truly trust. The bodyguards assigned by Death Row weren't there for him. They were there for the label. And in the weeks leading up to September 7th, those same people had been pressing him hard, pushing loyalty over freedom, business over brotherhood. Tupac was starting to see how deep the control ran, and it was eating at him. When Tupac and Suge finally rolled into the MGM Grand around 8:30 p.m., the energy was wild. Tyson's fight barely lasted 2 minutes, just a quick knockout, and the whole arena exploded in cheers. Cameras flashing, crowds screaming, people flooding the hallways. But then, in that chaos near the lobby elevators, everything changed. Trevon Trade D. Lane, one of Suge's men, suddenly spotted Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a known Crip from Compton. Anderson had been the talk of the streets for weeks. He'd robbed one of Death Row's guys and snatched a chain carrying the Ma Peru emblem, a move seen as pure disrespect. That chain wasn't just jewelry, it was a line in the sand. Tupac didn't hesitate. He stepped straight to Anderson, looked him in the face and said, "You from the South Side?" Then without a pause, he swung first. Suge and others jumped in instantly, fists flying. The whole thing caught on MGM's silent security cameras. The fight lasted just 13 seconds, but it set off a chain reaction that would never be undone. Security broke it up fast, no arrests, no charges, just tension thick enough to choke on. Orlando walked out of the MGM humiliated, his pride shattered and fury in his eyes. Tupac and Suge, on the other hand, walked out grinning, thinking they'd handled business. Back at the Luxor, Pac changed into a fresh white tank top, gold chains gleaming against his skin, ready to hit the Vegas Strip one last time, completely unaware that the night was about to turn legendary. For all the wrong reasons. Kidada told Tupac not to go back out that night. She felt something in her gut was wrong. But Suge was hosting an after-party at Club 662, Death Row's own spot on East Flamingo. Tupac shrugged it off, saying, "I'll just roll through, say what's up, and bounce." Still, everyone close to him could sense the energy shifting. Gobi later said there was tension in the air, the kind that makes your stomach twist. Even Tupac himself, according to those around him, seemed uneasy, like he knew trouble was circling but couldn't avoid it. At around 10:30 p.m., Tupac and Suge left the Luxor in a black BMW 750 IL sedan. Suge was behind the wheel. Tupac sat up front. Behind them followed a caravan of cars packed with Outlaws members and Death Row affiliates. Their destination was Club 662, but Vegas was alive like never before. The Strip was glowing, people pouring into the streets, traffic stacked bumper to bumper, music blasting from every corner. At 11:05 p.m., as they cruised through the neon lights, a group of women in a white Cadillac pulled up beside them, laughing and shouting Tupac's name. Pac grinned, flashed his ring, and exchanged smiles. A quick, carefree moment that now feels haunting to look back on. A few blocks later, they stopped at the light on Flamingo Road and Cova Lane. That's where it all flipped. Witnesses described what happened next as fast, too fast. A different white Cadillac, not the one from before, eased up beside the BMW on the right side. The window slid down, and suddenly, 13 to 15 rounds were unleashed into the car. Tupac was hit 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. Suge was grazed, blood running from his head as he tried to drive them out of danger. The strip that was glowing moments earlier had turned cold and silent, and in that single minute, the night that began in celebration became one of the most haunting mysteries in hip-hop history. The BMW jerked forward, tires screeching as Suge fought to stay in control. The car swerved through traffic, smashing into the curb on Harmon Avenue. Chaos everywhere. Somehow, through pure adrenaline, Suge managed to keep driving, making a wild U-turn before Vegas police finally caught up to them. At 11:20 p.m., paramedics rushed in, lights flashing, sirens echoing through the desert night, and raced Tupac to University Medical Center, cutting through the Vegas Strip like time itself was running out. Tupac was unconscious, losing blood fast, his pulse fading. The second they arrived at UMC, doctors threw him straight into trauma surgery. They worked non-stop, repairing arteries, removing damaged tissue, and putting him on a ventilator just to keep him alive. According to hospital records later summarized by the Clark County coroner, Tupac endured 3 major surgeries in total, including the removal of his right lung. He was placed in a medically induced coma as doctors tried to stabilize him, but outside those sterile walls, a whole different kind of battle was brewing. The waiting room had turned into a war zone, not with fists but with loyalty. On one side, Suge Knight's people, tense, silent, guarded. On the other, Tupac's family and closest friends, furious, emotional, demanding answers. Gobi Rahimi arrived within an hour of the shooting. He said the scene felt like pressure you could touch. Phones ringing nonstop, people shouting, pacing, crying. Then, the next morning, Tupac Shakur walked in, and everything changed. Her presence filled the room with strength and defiance. She had already survived the darkest parts of history, the movement, the losses, the pain, and she wasn't about to watch her son fade quietly. But as the hours turned into days, the hospital's hope started slipping away. Machines kept his body alive, but everyone around him could feel it. The energy was dimming, and no one knew what would come next. Doctors kept giving mixed reports. One moment they said Tupac was stable, the next his condition crashed again. Massive blood loss, collapsed lungs, infection setting in. His body was fighting, but the damage was deep. On the 6th day, the tension hit a new level. According to Gobi Rahimi, members of the Fruit of Islam suddenly arrived. Men in dark suits, silent, disciplined, standing guard in the hospital halls like they were preparing for something serious. The vibe was cold and heavy, like everyone knew the end was near. That same afternoon, Gobi left for a video shoot across the California desert. As he drove, the radio cracked through the static. Breaking news, rapper Tupac Shakur has died in Las Vegas at 4:03 p.m. Gobi pulled over on the side of the highway. Silence everywhere. The desert around him felt empty, unreal. The official cause listed was respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. Complications from multiple injuries, but that's exactly where the contradictions begin. Gobi swore that just that same morning, a nurse had told him Tupac was showing signs of improvement. About 13% better, she said. Not healed, but fighting strong. So what happened between that morning and 4 p.m.? Something doesn't add up. Insiders have whispered for years that Tupac's removal from life support wasn't only a medical call, that it might have been influenced by fear of more violence breaking out if he survived. Reports say Tupac Shakur personally told doctors not to prolong his suffering, but others who were close claimed there were heated arguments between family members, doctors, and death row staff that afternoon. Nobody could agree on what to do next. Suge Knight later told Vibe magazine that Tupac was talking and joking shortly before he passed, but hospital charts say he never regained full consciousness. So which version is the truth? Nobody knows for sure, because no independent witness outside of death row or UMC staff ever confirmed what really happened inside that ICU room. And that gap in the story is exactly where the mystery begins to grow even deeper. And then comes the strangest detail of all, the missing hours. Official reports list Tupac's time of passing at 4:03 p.m., yet the police didn't release the public announcement until almost 7 p.m. That's nearly a 3-hour gap, and nobody has ever clearly explained why. According to an archive report from the Las Vegas Sun, hospital staff were specifically ordered not to talk to the media or release any information until Tupac's family and death row representatives gave the green light. So what really happened during that mysterious window between 4 and 7 p.m.? Some now believe that's when the leaked funeral footage was actually filmed. The same 14 seconds that shocked the internet decades later. That cover-up on the night Tupac passed didn't just end an era, it fractured hip-hop history. And for almost 30 years, that crack has only grown wider, fed by rumors, conflicting stories, stories and discoveries that keep rewriting the truth every time we think we figured it out. But this time, the evidence doesn't come from a lyric, a fan theory, or someone's memory. It comes from a camera. The alleged footage, confirmed to have been recorded on analog film consistent with 1990s Sony camcorders, has completely flipped the narrative. Experts say it couldn't have been filmed anywhere but inside a controlled, restricted space. Not a church, not a fan gathering, but somewhere only insiders could access. There are no fans in the clip, no press, no chaos, just flickering candlelight, muffled whispers, and the unmistakable image of a body that was never supposed to exist beyond the cremation. And if this footage is real, that leaves us with only two possibilities, both explosive. Either the official story about Tupac's cremation was completely false, or someone secretly filmed his body against Afeni Shakur's explicit wishes, violating the one thing she demanded most, his peace. Whatever the truth is, those missing hours might hold the real key to what happened after 4:03 p.m. and why the world was never meant to see what the camera captured that night. At exactly 4:03 p.m., University Medical Center went into full lockdown. Access to the trauma ward was sealed. Only family, death row representatives, and the attending physicians were allowed through those doors. But here's where it gets strange. Years later, through a Las Vegas Review-Journal public records request, a transfer document surfaced showing one unverified entry, F. James, Media. No journalist by that name has ever stepped forward, no record of credentials, no trace of any assignment that night, nothing. That mysterious name has fueled speculation for decades. And in 2025, when digital restoration experts began analyzing the leaked footage, they found something chilling. In one frame, reflected faintly in a glass cabinet, there's the blurred outline of a man wearing hospital scrubs and holding what appears to be a shoulder-mounted camera. The same type used by professional documentarians back in the mid-1990s. Once the image was enhanced and color-corrected, the details lined up perfectly. Someone inside the hospital had filmed Tupac's body, but the question is, why? Gobi Rahimi's testimony fills in some of those missing pieces. He was at that hospital nearly every day while Tupac was alive, running shifts, guarding doors, and trying to keep outsiders away. He recalled strangers sneaking in, people posing as hospital staff or fake investigators, moving through restricted areas with clipboards and badges nobody recognized. By the end of that week, the tension got so bad that control of hospital security was taken over by the Fruit of Islam, replacing regular law enforcement entirely. By the morning of September 13th, Gobi finally left Vegas, believing Tupac was slowly recovering. A nurse had told him that very morning Tupac was 13% better. But just hours later, as Gobi drove through the desert toward Los Angeles, a voice broke through his radio. Breaking news, rapper Tupac Shakur has died. That number, 13%, became one of the eeriest parts of the Tupac mythology, because if he was truly getting better that morning, how did everything go so wrong by the afternoon? That's the mystery that still haunts every witness who was there, and every fan still chasing the truth. By that afternoon, Afeni Shakur's reaction was instant and fierce. In a 1997 Ebony interview, she made it crystal clear. She demanded every negative destroyed and every tape confiscated. "My son's image is not a commodity," she said with conviction, and for nearly 3 decades, it stayed that way. Untouchable, sacred, protected. But all of that changed in mid-2025 when a mysterious package reignited one of hip-hop's darkest legends. An anonymous former Las Vegas Metro Police technician reportedly delivered an old Hi-8 videotape to an independent archivist in Compton. The tech claimed it came from an evidence box mislabeled Vehicle Photos, BMW 750IL. The archivist, skeptical at first, ran oxide decay tests to confirm its age, and the tape checked out as authentic 1990s material. Once digitized, the footage revealed fragments that matched the leaked funeral clip, now setting the internet on fire. Within weeks, short snippets began spreading across forums and private servers. Authorities neither confirmed nor denied the tape's legitimacy. But what's wild is this: the existence of that footage aligns with gaps in the 1996 homicide evidence logs discovered during a 2023 internal audit. The missing items, mislabeled boxes, and destroyed paperwork all seem to trace back to that same evidence room. Digital analysts have since verified that the file structure matches early 2000s analog to digital transfers, the kind done around 2003 to 2005, during the rise of early YouTube culture. That means this clip could have quietly circulated in underground collector circles for nearly 20 years before the world ever saw it. Even more shocking, forensic archivists studying the tape frame by frame claim that 2 separate reflections show what appears to be the Death Row Records logo on a mourner's jacket, placing the scene within mere hours of Tupac's confirmed final moments. If that detail holds up, it doesn't just connect the footage to the case, it anchors it in time, proving someone close to the label was there when that forbidden recording was made. And that means Afeni's warning. "My son's image is not a commodity," might have been ignored from the very start. If this footage is real, it points to two explosive possibilities. Either insiders from Death Row Records secretly filmed Tupac's body before cremation, maybe for documentation or reasons we still don't know, or the cremation didn't happen right away and there was a temporary preparation for a quiet, private viewing with Afeni and a few trusted people. Neither version matches the official timeline. Not even close. Everyone believed the goal that night was to protect Tupac's legacy and keep his image safe. But the footage that surfaced now paints a different, much darker picture. It suggests that somewhere in those final moments, somebody broke that promise. And that's why both fans and investigators are completely fixated, because this single 14-second clip could change everything we thought we knew about Tupac's final hours, his farewell, and the secrecy that's shrouded it ever since. Almost 30 years later, the mystery surrounding Tupac Shakur refuses to fade. The discovery of this grainy, flickering, impossible-to-ignore footage has reignited the fire that never really went out. What started as a question of, is this real, has turned into something much bigger. A reckoning with how legends are made, how truth gets twisted, and how myth becomes more powerful than fact. Whether the tape shows Tupac's actual body or a masterfully staged reconstruction, its very existence exposes cracks in the official account. It hints that somewhere between the hospital, the mortuary, and the crematory, someone made a deliberate choice to preserve, to record, or maybe even to control how the world would remember him. That's the haunting part. The idea that behind all the headlines, cameras, and silence, someone might have been documenting a legacy, not to honor it, but to own it. And in doing so, they may have left behind the one piece of evidence that keeps Tupac's story alive, still untamed, still mysterious, and still echoing louder than ever. For Afeni Shakur, truth was sacred. It wasn't something to sell or twist. She wanted peace, privacy, and dignity for her son above everything else. But for others who were in that room during those final hours, the temptation to capture history might have been too strong to resist. If the leaked footage is authentic, it shows that Tupac's final moments weren't as clear-cut as the official records make them seem. There was confusion, quiet movement, and whispered decisions made behind closed doors, a gray area that history has never fully explained. The same Las Vegas where Tupac recorded Life Goes On might have witnessed one last broken promise, a moment where someone decided to film what should have stayed private. The image of a man who symbolized rebellion and raw truth may have been turned into something else, a relic of control, not remembrance. And while digital analysts and journalists today pick apart every frame, every timestamp, and every reflection in that footage, the real story isn't about pixels, it's about people. It's about loyalty and betrayal. About a man who had an army of love around him but still couldn't be fully protected. It's about a mother who tried to shield her son's spirit from an industry that thrives on spectacle, even in sorrow. This new footage doesn't just reopen an investigation, it reopens an old wound. Maybe that's what makes it so powerful. Tupac's legacy has always lived between reality and rumor, between the man he was and the myth the world built around him. The camera that captured those final moments may not have been meant for the public. Maybe it was just meant to preserve something sacred, but instead it became a mirror, reflecting how far people will go just to glimpse what they were never meant to see. In the end, that film doesn't bring peace, it brings weight. It reminds us that Tupac was bigger than the conspiracies, deeper than the theories. He was a man, a movement, and a mirror of truth the world still isn't ready to face. More than the coded messages fans still chase, Tupac was a son, a poet, a rebel whose entire life was built on defiance. And even now, that same energy refuses to fade. It lives in every blurry frame, every missing detail, every whisper that swears he's still out there somewhere, smiling at how the world still can't stop talking about him. Maybe that's exactly how Tupac wanted it. Not silence, but conversation. Not closure, but motion. His story was never meant to end cleanly. It was meant to keep evolving, just like he did. Because for those who lived that night, for Gobi Rahimi, for Afeni, and for the millions who still play his music daily, the truth doesn't stop with a leaked clip or a new theory. It lives on in his voice, sharp, fearless, and prophetic. When Tupac said, "Expect me like you expect Jesus to come back, I'm coming," he wasn't just talking about resurrection, he was talking about legacy. About how no matter what the world tries to bury, the spirit of truth, rebellion, and raw honesty will always rise again. And in that sense, he did come back. Through every debate, every lyric, every headline that refuses to let him rest. His name still shakes the culture, his message still sparks fire, and his presence still echoes louder than ever. If you made it this far, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that dig deep into the legends shaping the culture. See you on the next video. Because this story, it's far from over.